Hello and welcome back to Sacred Vapes, the channel that aims to bring you views and experiences of products in the market today, brought to you by an average vapor. Now, this week in the pod series, I've got something I've been using on and off for the past couple of weeks. It's one of those mods now that have coming out and they look pretty much the same as each other. This one is from Geekvape. It is called the Frenzy. Now, there is quite a lot of cookie cutter designs coming out, from different companies. Smock, Lost Vape, Smoans have got one out. I think Snowwolf just released one, and they all look the same as this. They're all box pod type systems. Now, the reason why I was interested in picking one of these up is because Geekvape have always been a high quality company. So you would imagine, especially following something like the Flint kit, which was absolutely excellent, that they would bring an excellent pod system out. So yeah, I've been trying that out for the past couple of weeks. So we'll get into talking about it. We'll drop into the up close, but first, let's give her a vape. Airflow is closed. For the unboxing for the Geekvape Frenzy kit. As you can see, what you get is you get typical Geekvape packaging with the black and orange. Flip it over to the back, you get a little description of what it does, contents, scratch code, social media links on the side, and that's it. So let's get her open now. And again, typical Geekvape packaging that you get. Get the box open. And there she is. So you get that, you get your pod system with the first coil installed already. Now we'll get underneath. First and foremost, we have instruction booklets. As you can see, you get your little warranty card things, advertising. Now in here, get there was your second coil. I've used both, and you get on this side a USB cable. So we'll get talking about the pod itself. The pod is a 950 mAh internal battery device, chargeable via USB on the USB port on that side. Now you get a fire button, you get the pod system itself, and you get a non-replaceable 510 drip tip on top of the pod. Now to operate the pod itself, it's 5 clicks. You get the light flashing down there, and that obviously red indicator means the battery is low, as you would imagine, but yeah, you will get that lighting up as you take a pull. Get talking about the pod. The pod is 2mm capacity pod device, as say 510 drip tip on top. Don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's your fill window, same on both sides. Now the pod itself is a replaceable replaceable coil pod system, not a pre-built pod. So how the bottom works, first and foremost, we have your fill port there. So we just get her open, little flap as you can see, and you get 2 little holes that you can fill the pod up with. Now get over to the replaceable pod. Now I found it easier if you just lift it up the right way and just turn it. Now turning it naturally is adjusting the airflow. Give me a second. There we go. You have to put a bit of force into it, and out comes the coil. Now the coil just screws into the base. Guys, an example. Here we go. There's your coil, absolutely tiny. But yeah, it just screws into the base like that. Screw it back up. And then back into the pod system. And there you go, and that's it. So it comes with two coils. It comes with a 0.7 mesh coil, and it comes with a 1.8 ohm nicotine salt coil, which is, I'm going to show you, the NS mesh coil system at the bottom. So let's take it back up top. We'll get talking about the Frenzy a little bit more and see if it's worth picking up. Welcome back. So that was the up close for the Geekvape Frenzy. Get talking about it now and see if it's a pod system worth picking up. Now the first pro for me is going to be the build quality of this is incredible. For a pod system device, especially one that's going to be priced quite low, it's a metallic body, plastic paneling, but it does feel like it would take the odd hit and it would still keep going. So I'll give that as a massive pro first and foremost. It doesn't feel cheap, and when you look at the button as well, button's nice and clicky, it's nice and responsive in that sense, and yeah, just overall brilliant quality design. Next pro for me is the battery life, 950 mAh. It's not the biggest, but it does last you well over a day before you have to recharge it if you're just taking the odd pull like that. So yeah, big pro for that. Next pro for me is going to be, in fact, it's 2 mil capacity. I know that's pretty average, but you could have easily gone under that for the profile, so I'll give that. In fact, it's adjustable airflow. That's a pro as well. Although there's not much adjustable airflow option. It's either airflow or no airflow. If that makes sense. It's quite strange. So that's the only real con in the design I'll give it. But yeah, flavor from these pods. It's not bad. Well, the mesh coil one, the 0.7, that is really good for flavour. This one is the Nixol coil 1.8. I wouldn't say it's as good for the flavour. It's much lighter vape, because you're going to be looking at getting about 14-15 watts through the mesh coil and only around about 10 through the Nixol coil. So yeah, it does affect the flavour, but you do get a nice flavour still coming through, just obviously not as much. I'd say there's plenty of airflow from this. That's going to be a pro. It's not a really restricted vape. There's a slight restriction in the airflow, but not as much as some of the other pods are brought to you. So I'll say that's a pro as well. Next pro, fill the mechanism's nice and easy. Turn it over, stick and bottle in, sorted, and you do get a little bit of bubbling. But what I did find with this, which again is a pro for me, is that when you're filling it up, because of the second air hole, that was creating the bubbling. So instead of bubbling going inside the pod, you were getting the bubbles forming on the outside hole. So then what you're getting is maximizing your capacity then, whereas other pods are brought to you guys have bubbled up inside and then reduced the capacity in that sense. The fact that you got a nice little 510 drip tip on top, that's a pro. Nice bright indicator light. It's quite easy to see in daylight, even more so when it turns red, which happened to me. And yeah, just overall, I think I've covered everything there. So we'll get into cons of this. And the first con for me, it's a pro for the bubbling, but having 2 holes is a little bit weird, especially for the fact that by the time you filled it up, it's going to come out the second hole rather than just stopping there at capacity. So bit of a strange con there. Next con for me is, say, the airflow. There's not that, it's adjustable, but it's not that optional. You don't get like a massive amount of options there. It's either going to be very, very restricted, or it's going to be open. And for something like the 1.8 coil, that might be a bit too much airflow. Next con. Now this is going to be a personal one for me. It's the mesh coil. It didn't cope well with the nicotine salts. Now, I know you'll be saying, well, one of the coils is called nicotine salt. Why would you use the other one then in it? And Mainly because the box pretty much said that it was nicotine salt coil technology, especially for mesh. So that was the one I went off with. And it's a shame because that experience with that mesh coil with the nicotine salt in was incredible. I will give it that. It gave a massive throat hit, lots of flavour, lots of vapour. And I was really enjoying it. But then after a couple of days, it just completely died on me. And yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't really carry on with that. So using the 1.8 one, I say Coil Life, you're going to get a couple of weeks out of it. So that's a pro as well. Going back to that. But yeah, it just feels a little bit underpowered for this nicotine salt coil. This is not really going to be. It's going to be kind of in between what anyone would want in that sense, because it's not giving you the throat hit off the 20 mg that you would like, and therefore I couldn't see smokers really going for that compared to using the mesh coil in this. So I would probably say, even though it's designed for nic salt, don't use nic salt with this device. Use regular e-liquid at a high milligram and use it in the mesh coil, and you'll get a much better performance out of it. Coils do allow you to take longer vapes on it, so that's another pro there. I keep going in between the both of them with this review. But yeah, other than that, there isn't really any other cons. I'd say the fact that the pod, you can see the pod is like black on the bottom, makes it very hard to see when the liquid is low. So I find myself filling it up a bit more often than what I would like, just to make sure I don't get any dry hits. And the other thing is, once you take the coil out, the liquid is going to immediately come out. There's no like sealant in there, which I know a lot of pod systems don't have that, but it would be nice to have that little bit of option there. You can change the coil and still keep your liquid inside. Other than that, I wouldn't say there's any other cons with this. So we'll get into the overall of this now. And overall, it's a good little pod system, this. It's not a pod system I would say is the best in its range. It's certainly the best one in this range that I've tried, being the only one. So this is something that I can see being really popular with people who use the mesh coil inside because of that throat hit and the flavour. For the nicotine salt coil, as I say, probably not the best pod system for that. It just lacks the power that you would want. But would I recommend this? If you're looking for a box pod that isn't a Nord, you can use the mesh coil with. Yeah, I would recommend using this because it does perform really well. It's built really well, and yeah, you're getting the Geekvape quality there. But just avoid that 1.8 coil because there really isn't any benefit from using it. So that was the Geekvape Frenzy. As always, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Coming up next week in the pod series, I'm going to roll it back a little bit, go back to a more standard pod. Hopefully you enjoy it. And yeah, as I always say, stay safe. And keep vaping.